The cold night air slipped through the cracks of a small suburban house where Rachel Foster, a diligent freelance writer, sat at her laptop. She was working late, as usual, trying to meet a deadline, but something felt off. The usual hum of her computer seemed louder tonight, like it was crawling into her bones. She dismissed it as her imagination, continuing to type. But then her screen flickered, and a message appeared from an unknown sender. "Can you hear it?" Rachel's fingers froze above the keyboard. She looked around her empty room, her pulse quickening. The hum grew louder, more insistent. She reached for the power button, but before she could press it, another message popped up. "It's too late. You've already heard it." A cold dread washed over her as the screen went black, leaving her staring at her own reflection. Behind her, in the faint light, she saw a shadow move. Rachel had always been practical, never one for superstitions or ghost stories. Her social media presence was professional, with a sprinkling of personal anecdotes. Recently, she tweeted about an odd humming noise she'd been hearing at night. Anyone else hearing that weird hum at night? Can't figure out where it's coming from. Curious neighbors. The tweet was meant to be a throwaway comment, but it quickly took on a life of its own. Replies flooded in from people all over the world, describing the same low, vibrating hum that seemed to be everywhere, yet nowhere. Rachel tried to keep up with the replies, but they soon became too much. People were sharing recordings, videos, all eerily similar. Some described the hum as a voice, almost human, whispering on the edge of hearing. Others claimed it drove them to the brink of insanity. Then came the private messages. They started as simple questions from anonymous accounts. "Do you hear it too?" But soon, they became more sinister. "It's calling you. It's getting closer. You can't escape it." Rachel's unease grew into outright fear. She blocked the accounts, but more kept appearing. Then, she received a message from an account named @TheListener, with a profile picture of a dark silhouette. The message was simple. Don't listen. Whatever you do, don't listen. She wanted to ignore it, but the words stuck with her. That night, she woke to a loud hum vibrating through her apartment. She grabbed her phone, only to find it was broadcasting a live video of her own living room. The camera slowly panned across the room, and then she saw it, a shadowy figure sitting in the corner. The hum grew louder, and then, as if from inside her own head, she heard a voice. "It's time to listen." The next day, Rachel tried to delete her tweet, but it reappeared on other accounts, as if it had a life of its own. The hum became a part of her existence, ever present, gnawing at her sanity. Then came the news reports. A local journalist had been found dead under mysterious circumstances, a journalist who had retweeted Rachel's original post. As the days passed, Rachel's apartment became a prison. She stopped answering calls, stopped going outside. The hum was with her always, a relentless presence. Desperate, she messaged @TheListener again, pleading for help. The response was immediate. "You can't run. You've heard the call. Now you belong to them." Her fear turned to resignation as she realized the truth. She couldn't escape. One night, after hours of pacing, she heard the hum louder than ever. The lights in her apartment flickered, and she knew it was time. Rachel walked to her laptop, her body moving on its own. The screen flickered to life, showing a live feed of her own face, gaunt and terrified. The last thing she heard was her own voice echoing through the hum. "You belong to them now." The next morning, Rachel's apartment was empty. No sign of struggle, no sign of Rachel. Her laptop screen displayed a single message: transmission ended. Weeks later, in a different city, a young woman named Sarah Turner tweeted, "Has anyone else been hearing weird noises at night? Like a low hum, curious neighbors." As her phone buzzed with notifications, Sarah thought she heard something faint in the distance, a low, resonant hum, growing louder, and from an anonymous account, a direct message popped up. "Do you hear it too?